The wind whispered through the ruins of old New York, carrying dust and silence across the empty streets. Once, this city was full of light, laughter, and human voices. Now, it was nothing more than a graveyard of steel and memory. Beneath the broken towers, deep inside an old military bunker, one man still breathed. His name was Commander Aaron Vale, the last known human alive. His hair was silver with age, his armor scratched and old, yet his eyes still burned with a quiet fire. He sat before a cracked console, its screens flickering weakly with fading blue light. The world outside was lost to the Vorax Dominion, an alien force that came from the stars 50 years ago. They had destroyed Earth's defenses, erased cities, and hunted every human they could find. Humanity fought back bravely, but in the end, only Heron remained. He had been hiding underground for months, keeping one last secret safe. The bunker was silent, except for the hum of old machines. Aaron coughed, the sound echoing in the hollow room. He looked at the console and whispered, "So this is it." "Old friend." A small AI drone beside him blinked with weak light and responded in a broken voice. "Commander?" "System failing." "Last signal detected." Aaron smiled sadly. "Yeah, I figured." "It's time." He pressed a small button on the desk, and a hologram flickered to life. Images of Earth before the war. Oceans blue, forests green, children laughing. For a moment, the old soldier closed his eyes and let the memories wash over him. Then, his face hardened again. He began recording a final message. "This is Commander Aaron Vale, Earth Defense Command. Last survivor of the human race," he said, his voice steady though his hands trembled. "To whoever finds this, know that humanity fought until its final breath. We never gave up." He looked straight at the camera. "There's a system buried under the surface, older than any of us, built for one purpose, to protect Earth when all else fails." He paused, breathing heavily. "I'm activating it now." Behind him, ancient generators rumbled to life for the first time in centuries. Dust fell from the ceiling as the bunker trembled. The AI drone hovered weakly, projecting a map, glowing lines showing massive chambers buried miles beneath the planet. Aaron stared at it with tired eyes. "Project Sentinel," he whispered. "I hope you still work." Outside, in the distance, the skies burned red. Alien ships hovered above the city, scanning for any sign of life. They had found the bunker's faint energy signal and were moving in fast. Aaron saw them on the radar and smiled bitterly. "Guess you're finally coming for me," he muttered. He stood, grabbing his old plasma rifle from the wall. It was dented, the power cells almost empty, but it still hummed with faint energy. He looked at his reflection in a cracked mirror. Tired eyes, worn face, a soldier to the end. "This is how it ends," he said softly. "But not for Earth." He limped to the heavy door, each step echoing in the narrow hallway. As the bunker shook from nearby explosions, he could hear the alien drones landing above. Metallic footsteps echoed from the corridors as they began cutting through the doors. Aaron took position near the main entrance, rifle ready, breath calm. He whispered, "For humanity," and pressed the activation button on his wrist pad, far beneath his feet. In the deep crust of Earth, hidden machines awoke. Gigantic stasis pods lit up one by one. Inside them slept Earth's super soldiers, enhanced warriors from the ancient wars. Forgotten by time, their eyes began to glow as dormant systems restarted. Power surged through underground cables older than history itself. Back in the bunker, Aaron fired his rifle as the first alien broke through the door. Bolts of blue light filled the hallway. Tearing through the air, the Vorax soldiers returned fire, their weapons burning holes in the steel walls. Aaron took cover, reloading with shaky hands. He knew he wouldn't last long, But he didn't care. All that mattered was giving Project Sentinel enough time to awaken. A blast shook the entire bunker, throwing Aaron to the ground. He groaned, bleeding from his side. The AI drone floated close and said weakly, "Commander, you must retreat." Aaron smiled faintly. "No retreat left, buddy." He aimed his rifle again and fired until it overheated. Each shot echoed like thunder through the dead city above. The aliens advanced slowly, their glowing armor lighting up the dark. One of them spoke in a cold mechanical tone. "Human resistance is over." Aaron coughed and laughed weakly. "Not yet." He reached for a small device on his belt, a final switch. He pressed it, and a low hum began to fill the air. The alien soldiers looked around, confused. The ground trembled, deep vibrations rising from the earth itself. Aaron leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Come on. Wake up," he whispered. In the distant underground chambers, the last pod finally unlocked with a loud hiss. A figure stepped out, tall, armored, eyes glowing white. The first super soldier had awakened. Aaron smiled as the aliens broke through his last defense. He could barely lift his head now. He whispered into his recorder, "To any who awaken, humanity is gone, but Earth is yours to protect." He looked up at the ceiling, where dust and light mixed. Then he whispered his last words, "Protect her." Always the aliens stormed in, weapons raised. But at that same moment, a shockwave rippled through the ground. Energy surged across the planet, lighting up ancient symbols buried in stone. The alien commander froze, sensing something powerful rising, and somewhere far below, a voice like thunder echoed through the darkness. "Directive, protect humanity." The earth began to wake. Deep under the surface of the dead earth, silence broke for the first time in centuries. Machines older than memory began to move, gears turning, lights flickering through layers of rock and dust. Ancient systems that had slept since the old wars were now alive again, hidden in massive chambers carved into the planet's crust. Rows of metal pods stood like silent tombs. Then, one by one, they opened. Thick mist poured out as the seals broke, filling the air with the sound of hissing steam. Inside each pod was a warrior, not human, not machine, but something between. They were the super soldiers of Earth, created long ago as humanity's final defense. Their bodies were forged with steel and bone, powered by energy cores that never truly died. Their minds were human once, trained for war, loyal only to one command: protect humanity. The first to awaken was Unit 07, known as Seraph. He stepped out slowly, his armor coated in frost, eyes glowing white in the darkness. His system scanned the air, finding oxygen thin but breathable. "System online," a robotic voice inside his helmet said. Seraph looked around at the others, still inside their pods. He placed a metal hand on the control panel and whispered softly, "Wake up, brothers and sisters. The war is not over." Lights ran down the long corridors as more pods opened. Massive figures emerged, shaking off centuries of sleep. Some stumbled, others stood tall immediately, their mechanical joints creaking like old doors. They looked around, confused, their memories still foggy. "Seraph," one of them said, a female voice from Unit 3. Her name was Lyra. She blinked, scanning her armor's data. "What year is it? Why were we activated?" Seraph turned toward her, his voice calm but heavy. "I do not know, but something triggered us." A nearby console flickered weakly, displaying an old holographic symbol, the insignia of the Earth Defense Command. Then a distorted voice played. "This is Commander Aaron Vale, last survivor of humanity." The soldiers froze, listening. Aaron's voice was broken and faint, but his words echoed through the chamber like a ghost. "There's a system buried under the surface, older than any of us. built to protect Earth when all else fails. I'm activating it now. The message ended with static. Silence filled the room again. Seraph stood still, processing the words. The last survivor? He whispered. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling. He said, Last survivor? That means humanity is gone? The thought hung in the air like a shadow. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Seraph raised his head. If humanity has fallen, then we are all that remains of them, he said slowly. Our creators are gone, but their mission remains. He clenched his metal fist. We were made to protect Earth, and we will continue to do so. The soldiers began reactivating the old systems around them. Lights returned to full brightness as ancient generators came online. Screens flickered to life, showing a map of Earth's surface. But what they saw made their hearts sink. The planet was black and burned. Cities destroyed, forests gone, oceans poisoned. Alien signals pulsed across the globe. The Vorex Dominion had claimed everything. Lyra stared at the map, shaking her head slowly. They turned Earth into a corpse, she whispered. Seraph placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we bring her back to life. He turned to the others. Check all systems. Find out how many of us remain. The machines around them whirred as data filled the screens. Out of 5,000 super soldiers, only 73 pods had survived. The rest were silent, destroyed by time. Seraph bowed his head for a moment of respect. They fought even in their sleep, he said quietly. Let their rest be eternal. Lyra nodded. 73 soldiers against an empire. The odds are impossible. Seraph looked up, a faint light flickering in his eyes. Then let's show them what impossible means. As they prepared to leave the chamber, an alarm blared suddenly. Lyra checked her visor and said sharply, Movement detected. Incoming energy signatures. The hologram showed several red dots closing in on their position from above. Vorex scouts, Seraph said, his voice now colder. They must have tracked the activation signal. He raised his arm, and his armor shifted, forming a heavy plasma cannon on his shoulder. Positions, he ordered. We fight as one. The others moved fast, taking cover behind stone pillars and machinery. The ground shook as the first explosion hit the surface above them. Dust rained down from the ceiling as alien drones burst through the tunnels, their eyes glowing red. Blue light filled the darkness as plasma fire roared through the chamber. The super soldiers returned fire with precise, deadly aim. Each movement was perfect, each strike clean. They were warriors built for this. The Vorex drones fell one by one, burning to ash, but more kept coming, crawling down the walls like metal insects. Fall back to Sector 9, Seraph ordered. We can't let them find the central core. As they retreated deeper into the base, Lyra shouted, There are too many of them. Seraph looked back. Calm even in chaos. Then we make them remember who owns this world. He turned, firing a single shot that caused the ceiling to collapse behind them. Sealing off the path, the ground trembled. Dust filled the air, and for a moment, all was quiet again. The soldiers stood in the dim light, weapons glowing faintly. Lyra looked at Seraph and asked, What now? Seraph looked toward the holographic map again, pointing at a flickering blue mark near the planet's surface. This signal, he said, is an old command center. Maybe there are more of us there. Maybe resources, Lyra nodded. And if not, then we fight until we can't, Seraph said simply. He looked up at the ceiling, as if seeing the dead sky above. Commander Aaron Vale gave his life to awaken us, he said softly. Now we carry his will. He turned toward the tunnel, his armor shining faintly in the darkness. Earth sleeps, but we will wake her again. And with that, the super soldiers of Earth began their long march to the surface. Above them, the alien ships hovered, unaware that something ancient and unstoppable, had just returned. The age of humanity was over, but the war for Earth had only just begun. The tunnels stretched for miles beneath the dead planet. They were dark, filled with the smell of rust, dust, and forgotten years. The super soldiers moved in silence, their glowing visors the only light in the blackness. Every step echoed like thunder in the hollow corridors. At the front walked Seraph, his heavy armor covered with scratches from the last battle. Beside him was Lyra, scanning the walls with her wrist device. Behind them, 71 other warriors marched, a small army of steel and memory. None spoke, for the silence of Earth felt sacred. Finally, after hours of walking, they reached a sealed steel door. The faded symbol of the old Earth Defense Command was still visible on its surface. Seraph placed his hand on the scanner, and after a pause, the door opened with a deep metallic groan. Cold air rushed past them. As they stepped inside, the chamber beyond was huge, filled with ancient equipment and dead screens. Dust lay thick on everything. Lyra brushed a hand across a console and said softly, "It's been hundreds of years." Seraph nodded. "Maybe more." He pressed a button, and a holographic globe of Earth flickered to life. The sight made every soldier stop. The planet was dark and wounded. Scars of war spread across continents. Radiation zones glowed red, oceans were gray, and only small pockets of green remained. Lyra stared in silence. "This was our home," she whispered. One of the soldiers behind her muttered, "Now it's only bones." Seraph's voice broke the silence, calm but filled with determination. "Then we rebuild it," he said. "We fight for every piece of her that still breathes." Suddenly, the ground above them shook violently. Dust and rock rained from the ceiling. Alarms blared across the chamber, red lights flashing. Lyra checked her scanner. "Vorex forces detected. Above us." Seraph turned toward his team. They found the tunnels. Within seconds, the super soldiers moved into formation. Their weapons unfolded from their armor like blades of light. Energy cores hummed as they powered up. Seraph raised his hand. No mercy. No retreat. The ground cracked open as alien drones burst through the floor. Dozens of them, their red eyes glowing, their metal wings unfolding. The battle began in chaos. Energy blasts filled the air, flashing across the dark room. The sound of plasma fire, explosions. And metal on metal echoed through the tunnels. Lyra moved like lightning, slicing through 2 drones with her arm blades. Seraph fired his shoulder cannon, blowing apart a group of enemies at once. But for every drone they destroyed, more came crawling down the walls. A soldier shouted, "They're calling reinforcements." Seraph looked at the radar. "We hold them here." He slammed his fist on a console, activating old defense turrets hidden in the walls. Rusty guns came to life, firing streams of blue light at the invaders. The room filled with smoke and sparks. The air was hot, the ground trembling with every explosion. Lyra saw one of the drones escaping through a vent. She aimed and fired, but missed by a second. The drone disappeared into the tunnels. Carrying a signal pulse, Lyra turned to Seraph, her voice urgent. "They're sending our location." Seraph's eyes glowed brighter. "Then the whole Vorex fleet will come." He looked at his soldiers. "And we'll be ready for them." When the last drone fell, the room went quiet except for the crackle of fire. The soldiers stood among the wreckage, breathing hard. Their armor was scorched, but their spirits unbroken. Lyra wiped black dust from her faceplate. "We can't stay underground forever," she said. Seraph looked at the ceiling, where small cracks of light broke through the rock. "You're right," he said. "It's time to see the surface." Together they climbed through the broken tunnels, following the faint light. As they neared the top, the sound of wind grew stronger. The smell of ash filled the air. Then, after centuries of sleep, The super soldiers of Earth saw the sky again. They stepped out of the ruins and stood on the surface of their planet. The sky was red and gray, thick clouds covering the sun. The land stretched endlessly, burned cities, broken roads, and fields of metal debris. In the distance, alien ships hovered, collecting resources from what was left of Earth. For a moment, none of the soldiers spoke. Lyra knelt, touching the ground, her armored fingers sinking into the gray soil. "It's cold," she said softly. "But it's still alive." Seraph looked toward the horizon, where the old human monuments still stood half-buried in dust. Statues of heroes, broken towers, fallen banners, all silent witnesses of a lost age. He whispered, "Humanity may be gone, but its spirit isn't." One of the younger soldiers, Unit 45, looked up at the alien ships and asked, "Do we attack them now?" Seraph shook his head. "Not yet." He pointed to the old signal tower on a nearby hill. "We rebuild our network first, find survivors. Find out how much of Earth they control." Lyra nodded. "And if there are no survivors?" Seraph's eyes glowed bright white. "Then we become their vengeance." The soldiers began their march toward the old communication tower. Their heavy steps shook the ground as the wind howled across the wasteland. Each one carried memories of humans they never met, creators they would never see again, but in their hearts burned the same code, the same will: protect humanity from the skies above. A Vorax scout ship scanned the land. It detected faint movement, strange heat signatures unlike anything before. The alien commander aboard the ship stared at the readings, confused. No life signs, but activity detected in Sector 9. It said coldly, "Send a report to the fleet." The message traveled through space, reaching the Vorax flagship orbiting Earth. There, a tall figure in black armor turned toward the holographic map. His eyes glowed red as he spoke. "So, the ghosts of Earth have awakened," he said with a cruel smile. "Then we will burn them again." Back on the ground, Seraph reached the top of the tower. He looked over the ruined world, his world. The wind blew dust across his armor. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "Their war is not over. Not while we still stand." He raised his hand to the sky, his armor glowing brighter. The other soldiers followed, their weapons lighting up the horizon. The world that had died long ago began to feel alive again. And high above, the alien ships slowly turned, heading toward the light that had just reappeared on the dead planet. The war for Earth had begun anew. The storm clouds rolled across the red sky, covering the ruins of the old world. Lightning flashed over broken towers, and the ground shook beneath the heavy steps of the super soldiers. They moved fast through the wastelands, led by Seraph, their leader. Behind him marched Lyra and 70 others, silent and ready. Their destination was an ancient facility buried under a mountain, the arc reactor, the very heart of Earth's old defense network. If they could restart it, the planet's shields would rise again, protecting the world from orbiting Vorax fleets. But the aliens had already detected their movements. The skies were filled with dark shapes, Vorax warships circling like vultures, waiting to strike. As the soldiers reached the base of the mountain, they saw it, a massive steel door half buried in rubble, covered with ash and vines. Lyra scanned it with her wrist device. "The reactor core is still intact," she said. "But it's running on emergency power," Seraph nodded. "Then we'll give it a heartbeat again." They entered the dark tunnel, their visors lighting the way. The air was heavy with dust and the smell of burned metal. Inside, the walls were lined with old wires and cracked screens showing faint human symbols. For a moment, Lyra stopped and touched one of the screens. A child's face appeared for a split second. "An old broadcast from before the war," she whispered softly. "They really lived here. Laughed here. Seraph placed a hand on her shoulder. And now we fight for them. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber, the arc reactor core. It stood like a giant heart of metal, silent and cold. Surrounded by black towers and dead energy conduits. Power lines connected, Lyra said, moving quickly between panels. Reactor fusion core offline. Needs manual ignition. Seraph looked around. Then, let's wake it manually. As the team began reconnecting circuits, the mountain trembled again. Outside, the skies darkened further as the Vorax fleet began descending. Their ships released thousands of drones that screamed through the atmosphere, glowing red like meteors. Lyra's radar lit up with warnings. They're coming. All of them. Seraph turned toward the soldiers. We hold this mountain. No matter the cost. The first blast hit the surface above them. Shaking the ground, dust fell from the ceiling. Alarms blaring through the chamber. The super soldiers took positions along the outer defenses, raising energy shields. The tunnels glowed blue as plasma cannons came online for the first time in centuries. Then the aliens arrived, Vorax warriors, tall, armored creatures with 4 arms and burning red eyes, burst into the tunnels. Their weapons fired beams of green energy that melted stone. Seraph roared. For Earth! And charged, the battle exploded like thunder through the mountain. Energy blasts, metal clashes, and the roar of machines filled the air. Lyra fought beside Seraph, her twin blades cutting through wave after wave of enemies. Each strike left trails of light as the ancient warriors defended their home once more. The Vorax forces were many, but the super soldiers were relentless. Still, the enemy numbers grew. For every alien that fell, another took its place. Lyra shouted over the noise. We can't hold much longer, Seraph replied. Just buy me time. He sprinted toward the central reactor core, where the ignition controls were buried beneath debris. He began reconnecting cables, sparks flying around him. Almost there, he muttered. Just a little more. Then a massive explosion rocked the entire chamber. One of the tunnels collapsed, crushing several soldiers. From the smoke emerged a towering Vorax commander, 10 feet tall. Armored in black metal, it roared, its voice echoing through the mountain. You cannot save this world, Seraph turned, his eyes glowing white-hot. Watch me, he charged. Slamming into the creature with full force, their clash shook the ground, each strike creating shockwaves that cracked the steel floor. Lyra joined the fight, slashing through the alien's armor. But the commander grabbed her and threw her against the wall, sparks flying from her armor. Lyra! Seraph shouted. He lunged, stabbing his energy blade deep into the creature's chest. It screamed, collapsing into fire and dust. Seraph fell to one knee, breathing hard. Report. Lyra's voice crackled through the cones, still standing. Barely. The remaining soldiers held the line, firing into the dark as more drones swarmed in. Seraph looked at the reactor and whispered, now or never. He reached for the last control lever and pulled it down with all his strength. The entire mountain lit up in a brilliant blue light. The arc reactor came to life, humming like a giant heartbeat. Energy surged through the planet's buried power lines. Spreading across the continents, the Earth's old defense shields began to rise, glowing like a blue web across the atmosphere. Outside, the Vorax ships fired down from orbit, but their beams broke against the new shield. The aliens roared in confusion as their weapons failed to pierce it. Lyra watched from the entrance, eyes wide. He did it, she whispered, but the joy was short-lived. A second blast hit the mountain. The aliens were trying to destroy the reactor itself. Seraph turned to his team. Evacuate the lower levels, he ordered. Lyra shook her head. And you? I'll hold the core, he said simply. The soldiers began retreating, dragging the wounded. Seraph stood alone before the glowing heart of the reactor. He looked at the hologram of Earth above the console, the world glowing blue again for the first time in centuries. He smiled faintly. "You're alive again, old friend." Then the roof cracked open, and from the sky descended a colossal alien ship, the Vorex flagship. It hovered over the mountain like a black sun, its weapons charging Lyra, watching from a distance. Screamed through the comms, "Seraph, get out of there." He didn't move. He placed both hands on the reactor core, channeling his own energy into it. "If they want Earth," he said softly, "they'll have to take me first." Light consumed everything as the reactor surged beyond its limit. A massive wave of energy blasted outward. Tearing through the alien fleet, ships exploded in the sky. Fire raining across the horizon, the mountain split open. Light shooting into the heavens like a beacon. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. The arc reactor still pulsed faintly. Alive but calm, Lyra climbed through the debris, calling out, "Seraph, respond." Only static answered her. She fell to her knees beside the glowing reactor, her visor reflecting its light. "He saved us," she whispered. "He saved Earth." Above the clouds, the surviving Vorex ships retreated into orbit, their flagship half destroyed, on board. The alien commander watched the rising light of Earth's shield, his voice a hiss. "This planet still fights," he said, "but next time, we will erase it completely." Back on the ground, Lyra stood before the glowing core. She raised her hand in salute. "For humanity," she said softly. The surviving soldiers gathered around her. Silent and proud, they looked up at the sky, no longer black, but glowing faint blue under the shield. And deep within the mountain, faint whispers of machinery stirred. Somewhere inside the reactor, a spark of Seraph's energy still lived. The war was far from over, but Earth's heart was beating again. The world was quiet again. The smoke from the battle still rose high into the gray sky, twisting like black rivers. Mountains glowed faintly where the arc reactor had awakened, spreading life and light across the land. The once dead Earth began to breathe again, but the silence was not peace. It was only the calm after war. Among the ruins stood Lyra, armor cracked, energy almost gone. She looked at the glowing reactor, the symbol of Earth's rebirth. Around her, the surviving super soldiers gathered, tired but unbroken. Their armor was scorched, their weapons nearly empty, yet their eyes still burned with purpose. They had fought the impossible and lived, but at a terrible cost. "Seraph is gone," Lyra said quietly, her voice low through the comms. No one answered. They all knew what he had done, how he had poured his own energy into the core to save the planet. Without him, the reactor would have failed. The shield would have collapsed, and Earth would be nothing but ash. Lyra walked closer to the reactor's heart. Its surface shimmered like liquid light, pulsing slowly, almost alive. She placed her metal hand on it and whispered, "You're still here, aren't you?" For a moment, the light flickered in response. A faint voice, deep and distant, echoed through the chamber. "I am here." "Always." Lyra froze, eyes wide. It was Seraph's voice, faint but unmistakable. His consciousness had merged with the reactor itself. He had become part of Earth's living defense, a guardian that would never die. Tears welled behind her visor, though she could not cry. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You protected her." Outside, the skies rumbled again. The Vorex fleet had not given up, high above, in orbit. Their mothership circled the planet like a vulture. Its weapons were damaged, but its will to destroy was unbroken. The alien commander glared at the glowing blue shield around Earth and hissed. "This world defies us still," he said. "Then we will burn it from its core." Massive plasma cannons began charging across the ship's surface. Energy gathered like a storm, ready to fire. Back on Earth, Lyra's sensors detected the power spike. She turned toward the horizon. "They're coming again," one soldier beside her asked. "Do we have anything left to fight with?" Lyra looked around at her small group. Barely 30 left. All wounded, all exhausted. "No," she said. "But we still have purpose." She activated the global communication network. Her voice echoed through the still active satellites. "Reaching every corner of the planet. This is Unit 03. Lyra of the Earth Defense Command," she said firmly. "To anyone who hears this, human or machine, the Earth still stands. And we will not fall." Her words spread through the airwaves, echoing through the ruins and into the atmosphere. At the same time, deep within the reactor, Seraph's energy pulsed brighter. He could feel the alien power building in orbit. He could sense their hatred, their hunger to destroy what remained. He whispered through the reactor's core. "Not again." The ground began to hum as the reactor drew more energy from the planet. The mountains glowed, rivers of blue light flowing through the cracks of the earth. Lyra looked up, her armor sensors flashing. "The core is overloading." A soft voice came through her comms. "It's me," Seraph said, his tone calm. "You must get the others to safety." Lyra's voice broke. "You'll destroy yourself," Seraph replied. "I already gave myself to the earth. This is just the end of the beginning." She hesitated, wanting to argue, but she could feel the power building beneath her feet. She turned to the others. "Evacuate now. That's an order." They obeyed, climbing down the mountain as the ground shook. Lyra was the last to leave, looking back one final time. The reactor shone like a second sun, and within its light, she thought she saw a figure, tall, armored, standing proud. She raised her hand in salute. "For humanity," she whispered. Then she turned and ran, in orbit. The alien commander laughed as the plasma cannons fired. Beams of green fire rained down toward Earth. But before they could strike, the arc reactor erupted. A wave of energy burst upward, brighter than lightning, faster than thought. It tore through the sky and into space, shattering the alien weapons, breaking their ships apart. The mothership was caught in the explosion, twisting and burning as its core melted away. From the ground, the soldiers watched as the night sky lit up like a star being born. When the light faded, silence returned once more. Earth's new shield shimmered softly. Stronger than ever before, the alien fleet was gone. Scattered into dust and memory, Lyra stood on a ridge, watching the dawn rise for the first time in centuries. The air was cleaner, the wind warmer. Small green sprouts began pushing through the gray soil. Life was returning. The surviving super soldiers gathered around her, their armor damaged, their weapons silent. But their mission complete, Lyra looked at them and spoke softly. "We are what's left of humanity, but not the end of it." They nodded. And one soldier asked, "What now, Commander?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Now we rebuild." She looked toward the horizon, where sunlight touched the ruins of the old cities. In that light, for just a moment, she thought she saw people, human silhouettes, walking through the mist. Maybe it was memory, maybe hope, maybe something more, Lyra whispered. "They will come back one day." They always do, deep within the arc reactor. Seraph's voice echoed one last time through the planet's network. "I will guard them until they return," he said. "I am Earth's memory, Earth's soldier, and Earth's soul." The light inside the mountain pulsed gently, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Above, the sky cleared, showing stars shining brighter than ever before. The Earth had survived her darkest night. The age of humans had ended. But the legacy of humanity lived on, not in flesh, but in steel, in courage, in will. And as the wind carried the dust of the old world away, a new dawn began. A whisper moved through the ruins, carried by the wind like a prayer. When the final human fell, Earth did not die. It awakened.